Good morning, everyone. I'm showing 10 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. This is Kevin Pattison, GBRA General Manager. Welcome to the GBRA Board of Directors meeting of June 10th, 2020. In keeping with the recommended social distancing requirements, we are once again holding this meeting via GoToWebinar. We want to ensure the operations and business of the authority can carry on without interruption or delay, while doing so in a manner that prioritizes the health and safety of the board, our employees, and the public, as explained in the communication distributed by us to the board by virtue of the recent issuance and reauthorization of the governor's disaster proclamation and subsequent temporary suspension of certain provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act. The authority is permitted to use certain alternate means to conduct meetings that are not usually permitted by the act, including telephonic participation by directors. I will now explain the webinar features. The call-in phone number is a listen-only line. If you would like to speak during public comment or on a specific agenda item, you will need to log in from a computer or from a smartphone using the GoToWebinar application. The web link has been provided on GBRA's social media platforms and on GBRA's homepage at gbra.org. The webinar link can also be accessed by opening the agenda document from our website. If you log in using the GoToWebinar link, we will be able to recognize you to speak during the appropriate time. Once again, the call-in phone number is listen only. Because this format is new to some of us, before the chairman opens the meeting, I would like to take a few moments to have our general counsel, Tom Bowl, discuss the requirements of the act relative to meeting by telephone. In addition to making sure we are complying with the requirements of the act, we believe having some general procedures in place will help carry out the meeting in an orderly and efficient manner. With that, I'll turn it over to Tom.
Thank you. This is Tom Bowl. First, I want to make sure that everyone in attendance is aware that this meeting is being recorded as required by the governor's proclamation and the Texas Open Meetings Act. A copy of the recording will be made available to the public. Second, the act requires each person clearly state their name prior to speaking. While I know it may take a while to get accustomed to doing so, please, each time you want to speak, state your name first for the record and so that the people who are listening know who's speaking. Third, to ensure clarity on the vote for all actions that require board actions, I'd ask the directors to please clearly state your name prior to making a motion or seconding a motion. Once a motion has been made and seconded, and after any discussion, I will call out the name of each director to vote separately on that motion. When you hear your name called, please verbally respond with an aye or a nay or an abstention. If your name is inadvertently not called for any votes, please speak up and let us know. Next, we want to make sure that we're not talking over each other. While we do not anticipate that that will be an issue, it may inadvertently occur since we don't have the benefit of, visual clues to know who wants to speak and when. If you want to speak, please raise your virtual hand to do so, directors, and GBRA's monitor will recognize you and announce to the chairman who has requested to speak. Also, in the interest of keeping the audio of this meeting as clear as possible, please mute your line whenever you're not speaking. And finally, we need to identify each person who is joining telephonically so that we can accurately reflect attendance in the minutes of the meeting. I will perform a roll call of the board members followed by employees. When you hear your name called, please respond to indicate that you're present on the call or here in the office, in the building. This is Tom Bowl, General Counsel. Please proceed, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, everyone. Tom, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Director Hermes? I'll come back to you, Director Hermes. Director Fogel, are you present?
Present.
Thank you. Director Matthews?
Present.
Thank you. Director Modal?
Present.
Director Metter?
Present.
Director Carbonara?
I'm here.
Director Eric?
Here.
Chairman Patilla?
Here.
And Director Hermes, I'm coming back just to see if you had some difficulty, or if you're on. Are you present?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Sure can. Okay, so Mr. Chairman, there's
Okay.
all of the current 8 directors are present.
Thank you, Mr. Bold, and welcome everybody to our June 10th, 2020 board meeting. We're still in interesting times, and I appreciate the staff for their continued attention to all the business that's required for the Guadalupe-Blanco River Authority. Mr. Patterson, have all appropriate notices been posted?
Yes, sir, they have.
Okay, so do we have the slides for the actual meeting agenda? Let's move to the chairman items.
Mr. Chairman, are y'all able to see slides? This is Tom, I'm sorry. Are y'all able to see slides? Computers? Is that what you're asking about?
My slide indicates chairman items, but I do not have an agenda.
Okay. Let us pause real quick and we'll get that agenda in front of you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this is Tom again. If I may, while we're pulling together an agenda so that we can send it to you all, I'm sorry about that, but if I may, I'd like to call the names of the staff people and other people who are present here in Seguin, if I can do that right now.
Absolutely.
All right, we have Mr. Pattison is here, Kevin Pattison, Daryl Nichols, Jonathan Stinson, Alvin Scherg, Daryl Ball is here, Randy Stotts, David Harris, Vanessa Guerrero, Charlie Hickman, Nathan Pence. I got that right this time. Thank you, Nathan. Nathan Pence. Now lost my place on the list. Hold on. Travis Sales is here from Baker Botts. Courtney Kerr-Moore is here. Ernie Granville, Tricia Ramirez, Lee Crettenden, Cricket Dietert, Patty Gonzalez, Amanda Reichley, Ram Mendoza, and is Carl Westergaard here? He's in there. Okay, so Carl Westergaard.
An email is being sent to y'all with the link to the agenda. Mr. Chairman, when you receive that, just let us know and then we can proceed.
All right. All right, I have it. Let's move into the chairman items. Consideration of and possible action on the procedures and conduct of the June 10, 2020 Board of Directors meeting and the procedures and conduct of the July 2020 Board of Directors meeting.
Mr. Chairman, this one doesn't necessarily require action. I just want to tee up this item to talk about the next board meeting. Per our schedule adopted last year, the board meeting for July would be July 15th. At this point in time, we anticipate being able to meet in person if the board prefers, and we do not anticipate needing to call a meeting before July 15th. As things continue to change with the state of the pandemic, we'll have to be flexible to see exactly what occurs as far as the governor's emergency declaration that allows us to meet via telephone. If that declaration goes away, then having an in-person meeting is the only option. And if there's, we'll continue to practice social distancing and limit the amount of staff that are actually present in the board meeting room to those who are necessary in the event we do meet in person. And so I just tee that up for discussion, Mr. Chairman, to see if there's any concern about that at this point in time. But otherwise, we'll plan on that being our first in-person meeting that we've had in a while, and be July 15th here in Seguin.
Sounds great, Kevin. Do any of the Board of Directors have any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, let's move to the public comment section. This portion of the meeting is intended for comments from the public on non-agenda item related topics. Please note that the board may not deliberate on the substance of non-agenda items, and persons wishing to make comment on specific agenda items will be recognized to speak at the time. Do we have anyone that would like, from the public, that would like to speak?
We do not have anyone signed in, Mr. Chairman.
All right, let's move to consent items. I will consider the 4 consent items as a whole unless there is an objection from the board, at which point we would take each one individually. So I would entertain a motion.
This is Don Metter. I so move.
Do I have a second?
This is Oscar, second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Tom, would you call the roll for the vote?
Yes, sir. This is Tom. Directors, if I miss you, I'll circle back and get you again. Director Hermes,
A.
Director Fogel,
Aye.
Director Matthews,
Aye.
Director Modal,
Aye.
Director Metter,
Aye.
Director Carbonara,
Aye.
Director Eric,
Aye.
Chairman Patillo.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 8 votes for, none against.
Motion carries. Let's move into the general manager CEO items. Mr. Pattison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are going to continue to push quarterly reports back until we start having in-person meetings again. So we'll start to catch those up in July. So for this item, we just have a few brief updates. First, I'm going to turn it over to David to give y'all some updates from operations.
Morning, Chairman and Directors. This is David Harris. First thing I'd like to go over is safety. I'm proud to say we had no accidents or reportable incidents in the previous 2-month period now. We procured 1,000 masks that were actually from FEMA through text warn a few weeks ago for our staff. We had ordered 600 one-time masks that were received. And just about a week ago, we have an additional 1,000 masks that were reusable cloth from FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So we should be fully supplied on masks for our staff, keep them safe as needed. Much of our training in person has been on hold, but there is a considerable amount of training online that is new just to keep people's licenses updated, and we've been utilizing that. The online testing centers for any employees that need to upgrade a license have been closed until just recently. There's some restrictions on distancing and mask and a lot of safety protocol, but those are beginning to open back up for our employees that need to use that. There's been continued information from HR and safety on personal protection and use of PPE and social distancing just to protect our staff and others as well. Just a couple of things on operations. We've had a project at Sunfield Wastewater Plant for Unit 1. It's near completion. We painted and sandblasted, put new air drops, some new valves, some new controls. We hope that will be in service in about 2 weeks. And the Crestview replacement plant has been relocated from Dallas, is down at Crestview, and our in-house crews are reassembling and putting that back together. We hope to have it in service by fall. We've also worked on numerous high service pumps at Lockhart, San Marcos, Western Canyon, regional raw water distribution system, just to keep them in optimal condition. And one thing of interest from the quarantine, with everybody using sanitizers, we've seen some differences at our wastewater plants. I actually had a few upsets from just different cleaners and cleansers that people have been using, killing out some of the bacteria in our plants. We're able to keep those in check. The operators did a great job to keep their plant running as good as possible. We just had to work a little harder these last few months. With that, that's all that I have, unless you have some questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I'm not seeing any questions, Mr. Chairman. So next I would ask for our safety manager, Amanda, to give you all a few updates as well.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman and Directors. This is Amanda Reichel, GBRA Safety and Risk Manager. I am happy to share with you the current safety efforts and updates since our last meeting. There's been no COVID-related cases for any GBRA employees. Our staff have been pretty prudent to timely reporting of any potential suspected cases, and we've remained consistent with our responses to our staff. We had our voluntary restart of office workers on the 1st of June, and with several safety measures in place before them coming back. As David mentioned, we've provided masks to all employees in our operations and in our office settings. We've deployed supplies to all areas, ensuring our essential stocks in place. We've provided training for healthy workspaces to all of our employees, and we created a return to work guidance specific to GBRA operations and our office environment expectations. We also continue to monitor all county data and reports for COVID positive cases, as well as the fatality rates. We've been going out to operation sites just to do a site check-in with our staff and follow up on any needs and obtained feedback. We've been collaborating preventative measures for return of work activities conducted in the field and with the public. For example, our gorge tours that just restarted and our educational outdoor activities. That is all I have at this time. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Are there any questions, Mr. Patterson, from the board?
Director Modell, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. I was just wondering how many employees have been tested on a rough percentage basis and whether they was the virus isolation test or the antibody test.
So we've had, I believe, roughly 4 employees tested. Some of them have also been their household members. No antibody tests were conducted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from directors, Mr. Patterson?
We don't have any other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I don't have any additional updates on item 8. And so if there are no questions, we can jump into the action item.
Let's do so. Action item number 9, consideration of and possible action authorizing the general manager, CEO to negotiate and execute a consulting agreement for the development of a habitat conservation plan.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. Since the board's resolution of support for a Guadalupe River Habitat Conservation Plan last summer, staff have been working hard.
Excuse me one second. Who's speaking?
Oh, I apologize, sir. This is Nathan Pence.
Thanks, Nathan.
Yes, sir. Since the resolution of support last summer, staff have been working hard on getting prepared to start the process of drafting and implementing a Guadalupe River Habitat Conservation Plan. One of the major steps in preparing for an HCP at GBRA was to develop a funding strategy and secure funds. After applying, GBRA was awarded a Section 6 grant of $1 million from the Department of Interior to be used towards our HCP planning efforts. Additionally, I am currently working on amending our funding agreement with the Edwards Aquifer Authority for funding their Edwards Aquifer HCP by reducing GBRA's commitment to them by $250,000 annually. Combine the Section 6 grant, the repurposed Edwards funds, and some internally budgeted funds provide the needed funding for a Guadalupe River Habitat Conservation Plan planning efforts. So moving forward, our next step is to utilize a competitive request for qualifications procurement process to select a contractor to assist us with planning and drafting of our Guadalupe River HCP. Therefore, today, we are asking the board to consider authorizing the general manager and CEO to negotiate and execute an agreement for a habitat conservation plan with a consultant. I'd be glad to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Nathan. Let's get a motion and second on the floor if possible, then we'll discuss. Do I have a motion?
This is Oscar, I move.
Do I have a second?
This is Don, I second.
Discussion.
I'm not seeing any questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
I'll call for the vote. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Tom. Director Hermes? Director Hermes, I'll circle back to you. Director Fogel?
Aye.
Aye.
Director Hermes, did I hear you vote aye? Is that correct?
All right, this is Oscar, I vote aye.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I think I heard from both of you, from Director Fogel and Director Hermes. Just for the record, if Director Hermes, did you make a vote?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Director Matthews,
Aye.
Director Modal,
Aye.
Director Metter,
Aye.
Director Carbonara,
Aye.
Director Ehrig,
Aye.
Chairman Patillo.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 8 votes in favor, none against.
Motion carries. Let's move to item 10, consideration of and possible action authorizing the general manager CEO to negotiate and execute an agreement to construct the GBRA Gorge Outdoor Lab.
Mr. Chairman, this is Nathan Pence again. We need to take the next 3 items individually, but they are all related to the GBRA Gorge at Canyon Lake. And generally, I wanted to start by thanking the Gorge Preservation Society for all of their past and ongoing contributions at the Gorge. I think it'll be evident to you all as I go through these next agenda items that their contributions are significant and they're a reoccurring theme out at the Gorge. So agenda item number 10 for the outdoor lab. Currently, there are many changes going on at the GBRA Gorge at Canyon Lake. If you've been out there, you can't help but notice the tractors and the staff buzzing around. All the work is associated with implementing the 2007 adopted master plan and increasing educational and recreational opportunities for students and the general public. As presented previously, one major step towards achieving these goals is to construct an outdoor lab that will serve multiple purposes. The lab would be used as a classroom for the 5th grade field trips, office space for our staff, day-to-day maintenance activities, and as a visitor center for guests as they arrive. In preparation for construction of the outdoor lab, GBRA staff and Gorge Preservation Society volunteers have been preparing the site by excavating rock, removing non-native trees, and getting water, electricity, and septic to the property, all at a great cost savings in the overall project. We're at a point to where we are ready to build the actual outdoor lab and have funds in this year's budgets to fund the project. Therefore, we are asking the board to consider authorizing the general manager and CEO to negotiate and execute an agreement to construct the GBRA Gorge Outdoor Lab.
Thank you, Nathan. I will entertain a motion.
This is Don, I so move.
Do I have a second?
This is Director Matthews, I second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, do we have any cost figures for this, Nathan? It's Oscar.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Oscar.
Yes, sir, Director Fogel. In conversations with some potential construction companies and vendors and working with our procurement agent here at GBRA, we believe this project is probably going to cost around $200,000 after all of the work that we have done out there getting ready for it. And we do have that in this year's budget, sir.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
There are no other questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Bowl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If your indulgence, I'm going to kind of go in reverse order. Chairman Patillo.
Aye.
Director Ehrig.
Aye.
Director Carbonara.
Aye.
Director Metter,
Aye.
Director Modal,
Aye.
Director Matthews,
Aye.
Director Fogel,
Aye.
Director Hermes.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 8 votes in favor and none against.
Motion carries. Let's move to the related item 11, consideration of and possible action authorizing the general manager CEO to negotiate and execute an agreement between the Gorge Preservation Society, Inc. and the Guadalupe-Blanco River Authority related to a GPS contribution to secure safety fencing and other projects associated with the North Rim Trail.
Mr. Chairman, this is Nathan Pence again. As in the past, GBRA continues to collaborate with the Gorge Preservation Society on activities and improvements at the GBRA Gorge at Canyon Lake. Since their inception, the Gorge Preservation Society has had the goal of opening a portion of the gorge to self-guided tours and hikes, which is also an element in the 2007 master plan and a priority of GBRA's. In 2019, the GPS board unanimously voted to utilize $100,000 of their resources for construction of the North Rim Trail, which when completed will be the self-guided feature at the gorge. The Gorge Preservation Society first used $30,000 of their funds to design the North Rim Trail and would now like to provide GBRA with a cash donation to fund certain elements of the North Rim Trail. Specifically, the Gorge Preservation Society would like to gift GBRA $48,750 to be used by GBRA through a competitive bid process to construct safety fencing at each of the 8 overlooked nodes at the North Rim Trail. Therefore, staff is recommending the board authorize the general manager and CEO to execute an agreement between the Gorge Preservation Society and the Guadalupe-Blanco River Authority for a cash gift for safety fencing and other projects associated with the North Rim Trail.
I'll entertain a motion.
This is Don Metter. I so move.
Do I have a second?
Director Matthews, I second.
Discussion.
Director Carbonari, do you have a question?
Yes, this is Will. Just in general, the North Rim Trail, how long is it? And what's the total cost of completing it start to end with the safety stuff added here?
Good question, Director Carbonari. So talking specifically just about the North Rim Trail, it's about a mile in length from the start to the end of the self-guided feature. It's got 8 overlook nodes that look down into the gorge itself so that people can view in there. We still have anticipation for adding interpretive signage, restroom, and some other amenities like seats and benches and picnic tables and things of that nature. All in all, the North Rim Trail, from design and fencing and preparing the site and mulch and some of the signage, around approximate number, sir, would probably be about $75,000 to $90,000. I have not put all those numbers right in front of me broken out like that project specifically, but doing that real quickly in my head, it's somewhere in that neighborhood, and GPS has contributed a large portion of the actual funds.
Well, that's wonderful. I thought it'd be a lot more, so that's great.
Director Carbonari, just to follow that, sir, we do a whole lot of work out there with volunteers and staff and utilizing resources that we have, and that's how we were able to keep that price down. The project is bigger than what that price reflects.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
This is Oscar. Nathan, I noticed that you're saying that GPS has provided this as a donation. And I know we've got, authority has restrictions on accepting donations, and I'm assuming that's all been set up and the legalities of that have all been taken care of, such as, I'm sure you keep that in a separate fund, or how are you doing that?
Yes, sir. That's one of the reasons that we're bringing this agreement before you today, is because some of those considerations and recommendations that we've got, we did go through our legal counsel, sir, to put this together and to make sure we were doing everything correctly. And I'd be glad to turn it over to Tom Bowl or one of his staff to give more legal input if needed.
Thank you, Nathan.
Mr. Chairman, this is Tom. We were attendance, and we're satisfied with them. I note that this is a gift to us, not a gift from us. And, you know, in addition to that, part of the reason that it's before you is that the relevant statutes say that GBRA may accept gifts such as are approved by the board. And that's why we're bringing it before you today, as well as to let you know that this is happening.
Thank you, Tom. Any other discussion or questions?
There are no other questions, Mr. Chairman.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Bowl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Tom. Director Hermes.
Aye.
Director Copeland.
Aye.
Director Matthews.
Aye.
Director Modal.
Aye.
Director Metter.
Aye.
Director Carbonara.
Aye.
Director Ehrig.
Aye.
Chairman Patillo.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 8 votes in favor, none against.
Motion carries. Let's move to number 12. Consideration of impossible action authorizing the general manager, CEO, to execute a bill of sale between the Gorge Preservation Society, Inc. and the Guadalupe-Blanco River Authority for a transfer of right, title, and interest in and to the GPS's 2005 Ford 14-passenger shuttle bus.
Mr. Chairman.
Supposing this is Mr. Pence.
Yes, sir, it is. With all the activity and improvements out at the Gorge, we are starting to recognize increased demand for our guided tours. As an example, our standard practice historically was to offer only 2 tours a week, and we currently just increased from those 2 tours a week to 5 tours a week, and are already discussing potentially going to a 7-day-a-week operation. It should come as no surprise to anyone that with the increased number of tours, we've had to increase staff and volunteer efforts and utilize fully all available resources that we have. One of these resources is the Gorge Preservation Society's shuttle bus. The shuttle bus is used to transport tour participants the short distance from the visitor's check-in site to the start of the tour up at the spillway. Up until now, the Gorge Preservation Society volunteers have been the ones driving the bus and maintaining the bus. With all the activity, we have outpaced the ability of the volunteers to keep up with all the tours. Therefore, the Gorge Preservation Society would like to gift the bus to GBRA so that GBRA staff may drive the bus, GBRA may maintain the shuttle and keep in safe operating condition at all times, and GBRA can carry the required appropriate insurance for the sort of operations occurring at the Gorge. Therefore, staff is asking the board to consider authorizing the general manager and CEO to execute a bill of sale between the Gorge Preservation Society and the Guadalupe-Blanco River Authority for a transfer of right, title, and interest in and to a 2005 Ford 14-passenger shuttle bus.
All right, let's see if we can get a motion on the floor in a second, and then we'll discuss.
This is Don Metter. I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Oscar, second.
I have a question, Nathan. This is Chairman Patillo. See that you're getting all the appropriate insurance. Is there any special driver's license required to transport the people? Is a commercial license required? And if so, does our staff have it?
Actually, sir, it is not required. That's one of the big deals about that being a 14-passenger vehicle rather than a larger size vehicle beyond that. A couple of our staff members do have upgraded driver's licenses, but it is not required. I think one of the things I would like to tell you there, sir, is we will be providing the staff that will be driving that bus with instruction and training and some experience before we put passengers on that bus with them. So we are definitely going through all the right steps, sir.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
Yes, this is Oscar again. Nathan, I'm not picking on you on it, but doesn't that require a chauffeur's license rather than a commercial license?
Sir, everything we have gone through with our insurance company to date and with our past experience speaking with the Department of Transportation, it does not require any sort of upgraded license, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
I don't see any other questions, Mr. Chairman, but I would just make one comment. I would like to compliment Nathan and his team and Jane Ellen for all they've done out at the Gorge. I know we've been talking about it for a couple of years with the vision of getting that more open to the public. And with everyone looking for outdoor activities right now, we've seen an increased amount of traffic, and we'd like to thank GPS as well for their cooperation. I know some board members have been out there, but if you'd like to go again, or if any board members that have not been out there, if you'd like to take your family or know anyone else that would like to go, please reach out to Nathan and feel free to schedule a tour. I obviously would recommend early in the morning at this point, or wait until the fall, but they're doing a lot of good things out there. But there are no other comments or questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. I'll call for the question, Mr. Bowl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Tom. Director Hermes,
Aye.
Director Fogel,
Aye.
Director Matthews,
Aye.
Director Modal,
Aye.
Director Metter,
Aye.
Director Carbonara,
Aye.
Director Ayrig,
Aye.
Chairman Patillo.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 8 votes in favor and none against.
Motion carries. Let's move to 13. Consideration of and possible action authorizing the general manager, CEO to engage the audit firm of Baker Tilly for the fiscal year 2020 financial audit.
Good morning, board members. I hope you all are well. This is Randy Stotts, Executive Manager of Finance. As we approach the end of our fiscal year, we have begun planning for an audit of our financial statements for fiscal year 2020. The last 2 years, we've used the firm Baker Tilly, and so this would be the third year. Typically, this action item is taken to the audit committee for consideration before it's brought before the board. But given the pandemic situation and the requirements associated with meetings, we're bringing this forward directly to the board. The not to exceed contract is $55,000 from Baker Tilly. This is about a 5% increase over the previous year, which is pretty much in the industry standards with regard to increases. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
I'll entertain a motion.
This is Don. I so
This is
move.
Ron Hermes. I so move.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Director Ayrig, second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Director Carbonara, do you have a question?
Yes, this is Will. I'm correct in saying this is their second year of the audit. So with last year's audit being the heaviest, even though they've increased their rate not to exceed, in theory, their hours, if everything goes smoothly, should be less than last year because they already have all the data into entry. Now they're just verifying those entries again compared to what last year, the first year getting in there.
That's correct. This is actually would be the third year that we would contract with them. They've done the audit the last 2 years. Last year, they incurred some pretty significant hours to go through an evaluation of our financial system conversion. They did not charge us for those hours. You know, from year to year, there's typically an increase in audit fees because of the additional requirements that come along in terms of accounting standards. And so, you know, if you look back at the last 10 years of history, you'd see an increase each and every year, regardless of the firm that we're working with. And again, it's industry standard to have a smaller increase.
Okay, well, I thought when we had the prior audit firm, when I was on the audit committee, I thought their rate went down over the ending years, like year 4 through 7, their rate went down.
If you went back in probably 10 years or so, there were pretty standard from year to year. But the last several years, even going back into the previous firm, there were annual increases that were included as part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
There are no other questions, Mr. Chairman.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Bowl.
Mr. Chairman, this is Tom. Director Hermes,
Aye.
Director Fogel,
Aye.
Director Matthews,
Aye.
Director Modal,
Aye.
Director Metter,
Aye.
Director Carbonara,
Aye.
Director Herrig,
Aye.
Chairman Patillo.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, there's 8 votes in favor of this item and none against.
Very well. The motion carries. Moving on to action item number 14.
Mr.
This has to do with the public necessity of for the acquisition of certain wastewater pipeline easements. I wonder, is Courtney available to tee that up?
Yes, sir, she is. Before she starts, may I interrupt for just a second? This is Tom.
Sure. Surely.
It's come to my attention that we didn't need an action from the board on item number 1, but we do need an action from the board on item number 2. I don't necessarily think it needs to be taken up at this moment, but I wanted to bring that to the attention of the chair. And with that, I'm pretty sure that Courtney is ready.
Great. Let's deal with item number 14, and we'll go back up to item number 2.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. I'm going to go ahead and read the agenda item, and then I'll provide you a little bit of an update about it, and then we will go from there.
Thank you.
Consideration of and possible action approving a resolution by the Guadalupe-Blanco River Authority declaring a public necessity for the acquisition of certain property rights for the Stein Falls Collection Capital Improvement Project, including by condemnation if necessary of the following property: approximately 3.825 acres of permanent easement and 2.743 acres of temporary construction easement located in a tract of land owned by James Hardy, as shown in deed recorded in volume 2274, page 382, official public records of Guadalupe County, Texas. Mr. Chairman, I provided you all with a color-coded map of the Stein Falls project. We will attach a copy of this map to our minutes as well. If you have the map before you, you'll see that the 2 parcels we're seeking eminent domain approval for are parcel 16 and 17 with kind of a yellow border there in the middle. The other parcels, I have a legend there for you, kind of the status of those. So if you have any questions about those other ones, I'm happy to answer. I do also have a brief update on the cases that we have filed condemnation petitions for. We do have 1 hearing set for June 26th. We have 4 additional parcels that the landowner has indicated they don't want to settle, and so we're trying to schedule 4 additional hearings. We do have 5 other cases that commissioners have been appointed, but we are still trying to negotiate with the landowner, so we have not set those for hearing quite yet. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this point.
Let's go ahead and get a motion and second on the floor, then we'll open it for discussion. Director Metter, can you read the motion?
Yes, this is Don Metter. I move the Board of Directors of the Guadalupe-Blanco River Authority authorize the use of the power of eminent domain to acquire the following property located in Guadalupe County, Texas: 3.825 acres of permanent easement and 2.743 acres of temporary construction easement located in a tract of land owned by James Hardy for the construction, operation, and maintenance of certain wastewater diversion facilities and a wastewater pipeline and wastewater treatment lift station and other system-related improvement for the Stein Falls Collection Capital Improvement Project located in portions of Guadalupe County. My motion includes approval of the proposed resolution and intends that the record vote on this matter applies to all units of the property condemned.
That's the motion. Do I have a second?
This is Kenneth Modell. I'll second.
Thank you, Director Modell. Now we're open for discussion.
I don't see any comments or questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
I'll call the question. Mr. Bowl.
Thank you. This is Tom. Director Hermes? I'll circle back with you.
Aye.
Director, got an aye? Director Fogel,
Aye.
Director Matthews,
Aye.
Director Model,
Aye.
Director Metter,
Aye.
Director Carbonara,
Aye.
Director Eric,
Aye.
Chairman Patillo.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, there are 8 votes in favor and none against.
Motion carries. We'll deal with item 15 and then go back up to item 2. Item 15 is consideration of and possible action authorizing the general manager CEO to negotiate and execute a contract with the lowest responsible bidder for the North Cliff wastewater treatment plant demolition project.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. This is Charlie Hickman with engineering.
Good morning.
Good morning. Here's an aerial of the current facility. This is a small 300,000 gallon per day wastewater treatment plant that's been in service since the mid 1970s. So it's been in service for around 45 years. The current purpose of the plant is it serves it treats a portion of the wastewater discharges for the city of Schertz. They actually have a bypass structure on the back of the property that allows them to send a portion of the flows to the GBRA treatment plant, and the rest go off to this lift station and are pumped elsewhere for treatment. In recent years, they have an agreement with the Cibolo Creek Municipal Authority, who has expanded their treatment plant and can now accept all of the wastewater flows from this location. So this facility is no longer needed to treat that waste. We have actually already decommissioned the facility. Our operations staff have gone and dewatered all the structures, and we're in the process of removing some of the equipment that we can repurpose at other facilities. So anywhere you see on this exhibit to be removed by others, that's GBRA staff taking that off for use at other facilities. The permit actually is well expired in 2020, and TCEQ has been given notice of the decommissioning. So the purpose of this project would just be to issue a request for proposals to get a contractor to come out and actually demolish a lot of these concrete structures in this building you see out here. So they would come excavate these down to 4 feet below grade and fill in with dirt is essentially the scope of work. So I'd like to thank Amy Uniac for preparing all the plans and specifications in-house for this project. She's done a really thorough job of identifying all the key issues on this project and coordinating everything needed to accomplish this demolition. So with your approval, we'd be looking to issue that RFP and get a contractor to the site. So I'll open it up for any questions you may have.
Very well. I'll entertain a motion.
This is Don. I so move.
Do I have a second?
This is Oscar. So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Director Model, did you have a question?
I have 2 actually. Who owns the property where the plant is?
That's GBRA's property.
Is there an intended purpose for it after this?
I believe it could potentially be sold to the right buyer.
The second question is, this is a completely contained structure, so there should not be any issues with hazardous waste in the grounds itself?
No, sir. We've already actually, like I said, taken all the wastewater out of the facility and ensured that that's been properly handled. So that's even outside of the contractor scope. The only thing that is still being investigated is we're having an asbestos survey done of the existing building that would be required before we get the permit from Schertz. But that's the only outstanding issue to investigate.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
There are no other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Call for the vote. Tom?
This is Tom. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Hermes,
Aye.
Director Fogel,
Aye.
Director Matthews,
Aye.
Director Model,
Aye.
Director Metter,
Aye.
Director Carbonara,
Aye.
Director Eric,
Aye.
Chairman Patillo.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, there are 8 votes for and none against.
Motion carries. Let's go back up to item number 2, which is consideration of and possible action approving an order of the Board of Directors of the Guadalupe-Blanco River Authority ratifying action canceling the May 20, 2020 and June 17th, 2020 board meetings.
Chairman, if I may, this is Tom. Just by way of explanation, this is a formality that we're requesting the board to approve because under the current board bylaws, special meetings can be scheduled by the chairman, but any changes in meeting dates are to be done by the board. And of course, a board action is required to be done in open session. So we've presented this ordinance to kind of formalize the change in scheduling for May and for June. It's similar to what we did in April and what we presented to the board in April.
Thank you, Tom. Do I have a motion?
This is Don. I so move.
Do I have a second?
Director Matthews, I second.
Any discussion?
There are no questions, Mr. Chairman.
I'll call the question. Tom?
Director Hermes,
Aye.
Director Fogel,
Aye.
Director Matthews,
Aye.
Director Modal,
Aye.
Director Metter,
Aye.
Director Carbonara,
Aye.
Director Eric,
Aye.
Director, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Patillo.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, there are 8 votes in favor and none opposed.
The motion carries. That moves us to the discussion items. Discussion and presentation of the fiscal year 2021 proposed Guadalupe-Blanco River Authority work plan and budget.
Board members, good morning again. This is Randy Stotts. The presentation that you're going to see this morning is a little bit different from previous year's presentations, and that's based on the timelines that we've made some modifications to during the last board meeting. We shared some information with that, and I want to elaborate on that a little bit more for you as well. But the timing of this board meeting was pushed back a little bit, and so we are still working on tying out a few of the numbers and validating our information to ensure we have everything accurate before we bring it before you. But what I did want to talk to you about is a little bit more about the timeline, some background on our focus during this budget process, and then share with you the rate increases that we're proposing. Looking at all of our operating systems, there's a total of 29 divisions. This is one less than we were at this time last year, and that's a result of what Charlie just presented to you with regard to the North Cliff wastewater treatment plant that is in the process of being decommissioned. Regarding the budget timeline and the changes, the impetus for this was really to align our effective dates for all of our rates with the fiscal year. Outlined on this slide is current timeline for certain rates that are approved. You see some of those are in September, and those on the bottom are in October. And so what we're looking to do is actually move up the timeline 30 days by presenting this to you in June as opposed to July. And that provides us sufficient time to provide notice to our customers and be able to move those rates back into the start of September the 1st. Here's a little bit more information on that timeline and bringing forward that this budget presentation to June, and then being able to notify our customers. And our practice has been when the rate has been calculated and determined and shared with the board, that we go ahead and communicate that to board members. And then we'd be able to start the rate in September as opposed to October. I do want to take a minute just to reiterate the fact that rates are set and approved and validated by the board of directors. And should there be a rate that we bring forward to you that you have concerns or questions about, we can certainly hold the line on that and have more conversations before we notify customers. Alternatively, we can also send a second notice to customers if we make a change during the process. An example of that might be last year when we were having conversations around changes to the rural water rate. And through those additional conversations, we elected to hold off on that increase until we could develop a communication campaign, and then we brought that back in October a little bit later. So you always have discretion as a board on the rates that are set for the different services we provide. With regard to the legal requirements for notification, they're outlined to some degree in the water code. They're not as clear as one would hope. On the wholesale rates, there's actually not a notification requirement that's outlined in the water code. There are some provisions for an appeal process for customers. On the retail side, there is some specific wording in the law that speaks to customers that are outside of the boundaries, but not within the boundaries of GBRA. And so that portion does require a 60-day notice. And just, to err on the side of caution, our practice has been just to notify customers when we have a change or an increase in rate, and also just to provide good customer service to all of our customers. And so I wanted to make sure that you are aware of that legal requirement and how we've interpreted that and how it's put into play. When we started our budget process in March this year, again, that was 30 days in advance of when we normally start, we were just in the early phases of the COVID-19 pandemic, and there were still a lot of unknowns, but what we did know for sure is that we wanted to make sure that we took into consideration the impact that this pandemic was having on all of our customers, whether they were retail, cities, or other wholesale providers, and ensuring that we took into consideration the things that they were going through and what the impact might be on their revenue streams. And so we were very customer centric, and we were really looking to find a way to hold the line where possible on any kind of increases in the budget in terms of expenses, and not pass that on to customers where that was possible. The next couple of slides are kind of a follow-up from our last meeting, where I shared with you some of the budget challenges that we were going to have through the process. This slide speaks to revenues in particular. We've identified the interest rate environment, as you know, and as you've read, I'm sure, the impact that this pandemic has had on interest rates and the ability to generate interest income. Certainly, it's a great time to borrow, but not necessarily a great time to invest. And so we've actually decreased our projected interest revenue significantly. You can see the number there. We've gone from over 600,000 to less than 50,000, just because of the rates we feel like we're not going to be able to achieve during that time frame. Government investment pools right now are running about 21, 22 basis points, significantly less than where they were back in January, February of this year. And then again, really focus on sensitivity to our customers in terms of the rates that we set. And so our water sales budget would include the same firm water rate that we have for the current year, and that's $151 per acre foot. The last time that we had no increase in the firm water rate was 2013, so it's been a number of years. And this will only be the fourth time in the last 20 years that this rate has not increased. We've also taken time to look at some of our existing contracts. There are a couple of those that we're in the process of negotiating and making some changes to. And as those come to fruition, we'll bring those back for your review and approval. Looking at the expense side, as you know, we have ongoing litigation costs that we're including in the budget. This past year, we had initially included $500,000. We made some changes to that, and you all approved some budget amendments to bring that amount to $2.8 million. And currently, we've expended about $1.9 million through the end of March. And so there's been some additional incurrences in the current year. For next year, we've included $1.5 million for litigation costs. There may be a need to make some modifications throughout the course of the year as well. With regard to salaries and hiring, typically in a budget year, we include some level of increase for salary and merit increases for staff. Given the unemployment rate and the number of jobs that have been a number of individuals that have lost jobs over the last 3 months. We felt like we really need to be prudent in protecting both our customers and perception in terms of not providing increases. Now, we have had some conversations about ways to show appreciation for staff and finding some alternatives to that. And so, those conversations are ongoing, but there's nothing in the budget that would provide for salary and merit increases at this point. In terms of health insurance costs, because of the timing of our plan year and the timing of our fiscal year, we don't typically know what that increase is going to be until well into next year's fiscal year. But we've included a 10% increase, not knowing what that would look like. Certainly all of the testing and all of the things that health insurance providers have provided during this pandemic will be a factor in the setting of those rates. And so we wanted to make sure we had sufficient cushion in there to be able to cover that. In terms of our pension plan contribution, now that we've migrated to the TCDRS plan, the thought would be that we would be able to decrease this contribution over a period of time. Given the last several months of interest and performance of the plan, we've actually added $1 million in there for next year's budget, not knowing what those numbers would look like. We had a very good plan performance in 2019, a little over 19%. The first quarter of the year, losses of about a little over 14%, but it's rebounded in April and May. And so right now we're sitting at a projected negative 3.8% for just the current year, January through May. So, that's a positive trend. We're still expecting, some additional changes to that as we move, as the investment market moves a little further into the year. With regard to travel, it's a very small portion of our budget overall, but we did make some changes to that, not knowing what seminars may go online, and therefore there wouldn't necessarily be a need for travel. But the travel budget has decreased about 14%. And then in terms of postponement projects, at the time we were not sure what we might have to do and changes that we might have to make, but there are no major capital projects that are postponed at this time. As we did work through the budget process, we did have to go back and make some reductions to some of the requests that were submitted. And so some of the initiatives that were initially planned have been set aside or delayed for the future, or we made some modifications and able to achieve the same outcome by an alternative way. Not having any budgetary numbers to share with you, I did want to tell you that all of our divisions, with the exception of one, have a balanced or surplus budget. So we've worked hard to get there, and as I mentioned, we've had lots of conversations to be able to get to that point. The one deficit budget is in the GV hydroelectric, and that's similar to what was in place in the current fiscal year. Moving over to rate increases, I did want to share with you some of the ones that are being proposed to you. Again, firm water rate is being held at 151 for the year, but there are a lot of repair work and other types of projects that are ongoing within pipelines and in the Western Canyon area, and some other areas that drive the rates as an increase over the previous year. These are costs per 1,000 gallons as they're presented. There are a few modifications to some of the recreation areas. Part of that is driven by a master plan that has been completed in the Coleto Creek area. And so I wanted to share those with you. These would be the ones that we would reach out to customers later this month and notify them of a rate increase. From a dollar perspective, these don't make that large of an impact, but certainly there is an increase there to be able to accommodate the programs that are happening in those areas. From a staffing perspective, we have grown significantly over the last several years. If you include the two positions that we're proposing in the 2021 budget, actually increased staffing 22% since 2015-16. but we did hold the line, and there were 6 additional positions that were requested during this process that we're finding some alternative ways to be able to manage. There may be a need to come back at some point for your consideration, but at this point, we're proposing only 2 positions. And these are the 2 positions that are presented. The Sunfield wastewater treatment plant, we expect to take ownership of that later this year. And when we do, there'll be some need for an additional work in that area, inspecting all those new connections that tie into that system. And so we're proposing a new operator. And then in the environmental department, as you know, GBRA received a $1 million grant from U.S. Fish and Wildlife for the preparation of a habitat conservation plan, and you authorized an action item earlier this morning related to this. But this individual would participate in helping draft that plan and working with the consultants to make that happen. Currently, the addition of this position is contingent upon some contract negotiations. So we actually expect this to be a neutral impact on the budget, whereas reductions in other areas would be used to fund this position. In terms of next steps on the budget schedule, as I mentioned, we're finalizing all of our numbers, and then we'll be getting together our budget binders to be distributed to you at the July board meeting. And then we are planning some additional budget work sessions as we have in years past in late July or early August. And we'll make sure we have sufficient time between the July board meeting and those work sessions, so you'll have time to review the budget binder, develop any questions that you may have, and then bring back for your consideration at the August board meeting adoption of the budget. So that's all I have for you this morning. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about our process and what we consider during our budget session.
Thank you, Randy. This is Dennis. Any questions from the directors?
Director Carbonara?
Yeah, so remind me for the benefits standpoint, or tell me, what do we anticipate our actual to budget for this year?
I don't have that in front of me. I apologize for that, but we have it has been a higher year in terms of water sales, and so you know, with the current.
No, I'm just talking about benefits for the employees, the health insurance and the benefits.
Okay. We actually this year, as compared to the last year, well, this is the second year we've been with United Healthcare, and they actually held the line on increases from the first year to the second year. We had a pretty low loss ratio from in the first year, and so UHC was able to hold the line for us. We have had increased claims in the current year, and so we do anticipate a rate increase to some level, both from the COVID pandemic situation, but also because of our claims. And so,
well, my question is, but how much are we below last year's budget number to this year? If they held the line, I guess my point is, are we 5%, 10% under last year's budget, and then giving an additional 10% pop for the next year's thought or for budget process? A lot of things I've read and seen is that the health insurance has been a positive from usage over this time frame. And I just always think, if you tell the insurance companies on the front side that the budget is higher, then do they really give us the best rate, knowing that they have more wiggle room than before? I'm just, you know, talking about it from doing it.
Right. We don't share our budget information with the providers. They set their rates based on the claims experience that we have, but also because of our size, you know, being less than 200 employees, they also add a factor in there what is happening within the rest of their client pools.
Certainly.
And so there's a factor in there that accounts for that, but we don't share any information with them in terms of what our budget is for benefits. They come back to us with a rate. Vanessa and her team went through a process to hire a benefits consultant last year, and we've been working with them. And they actually have the conversations directly with the providers and negotiate rates. Typically, their first offer is higher than what we're comfortable with, and we have more conversations and negotiations with them, and to bring that rate down. We expect that to happen again this year. 2 years ago is when we went through the competitive procurement process to bring in United Healthcare, and they came in at a lower rate than what the previous provider was willing to offer.
So all they know about is last year's budget number. They don't know that we've done a 10% increase until the actual budget is approved.
Well, again, with the United Healthcare or any provider, we don't share any information with them in terms of what we've offered from a budget standpoint.
But that's not public record to get to the budget?
I'm sorry?
That's not public record that they could see the budget?
It is. I mean, and they certainly have access to these presentations, but it's not part of the negotiations that we're having with our benefits consultant or with the provider.
Okay, I would think they would look it up and know, is my opinion. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or discussion?
There are no other questions at this time.
All right, let's move to the next agenda item. I think it's base flow reports.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and board members. This is Charlie Hickman again. We've been fortunate to have a series of waves of rainfall during May. So I will kind of briefly walk you through that. Started back May 12th, we had a rainfall event. If you look at that bullseye right there in the center of the rainfall event, where you had, around in excess of 8 inches of rain, that was right on top of Canyon Dam. So, we did see a lot of increase in the canyon elevation just due to direct precipitation right on top of the lake, and some good rains across the rest of the basin as well. That rain did cause some flooding in the Startsville area. The picture you see on the left is the Lowe's supermarket there in Startsville with a flooded parking lot, and that did flood the inside of the building. The picture you see on the right here, this video shows you from our river correspondent what the flows below Canyon looked like at about 4,000 CFS. So that rainfall event did generate some pretty good flows up above New Braunfels. And then a few days later, May 15th, we had another good, 2 to 3 inch rainfall that fell on top of Kendall County, just upstream of Canyon. About a week went by, and then we had another wave of rain, about the same amount, 2 to 3 inches up above Canyon, up in Kendall County. Started bringing some inflows into Canyon Reservoir. And then we had another couple of events up in the Kerrville area, May 27th, about 1.5 inches of rain there on top of Kerrville, followed by a 2 to 3 inch rainfall the next day that caused a subsequent peak in the inflow to Canyon. So here's a shot of what that looked like up in the Bergheim area. These are the types of flows that we really hope to see in the spring time frame coming into Canyon Reservoir as we get into the hotter days of summer. So we were fortunate to get those inflows. To kind of summarize all that, it says observed. This is the normal rainfall for May. You see that we're really typically looking for about 3 to 5 inches in this time period, and we well exceeded that with more like 6 to 8 inches of rain almost across the entire river basin. So it was a really good May for us. And you see some of those areas where we got in excess of 10 inches of rain right on top of the lake and up in the Blanco River Basin. So really fortunate to have that headed into summer. Here's on the left, the graphic shows you the hydrograph for Spring Branch, which is the inflow into Canyon, and you can see those waves of rain causing those subsequent rises in the river. And we had a couple of events of around 1,000 to 2,000 CFS of peak inflow into the lake. On the right shows you how the lake responded. So you can see all year long we've been hovering around an elevation of 906. so about 3 feet below conservation storage, and we came just shy of filling up the reservoir with all that rainfall event we had. We're less than a foot below conservation storage now, around 908.2. So really would have just taken one more rainfall event, and it looked promising that maybe the potential existed. We had a tropical storm out in the Gulf, but as y'all aware, we ended up on the high pressure side, and all that brought us was this heat advisory and some really high heat indices and dry conditions. So didn't quite get to fill the lake up, but we are very near full. So again, without that additional rainfall event, while we're not really in a drought from a basin perspective, our permits still remain in the drought condition until the reservoir refills to full conservation. So releases from Canyon could be expected to continue around 65 to 95 CFS up until we fill the reservoir again. And if that happens in the summer, we could see those minimum flows increase to more like 150 CFS, but take a little more rain to get there. Did have some positive impacts for the Edwards Aquifer. The J17 index well in San Antonio is shown on the left and how that's tracked this year. So we've been up around 670, and then kind of starting in May, we were seeing a sharp drop as water use started to increase. They were starting to talk about implementing a potential critical period drought stage, which hadn't been done in quite some time. We haven't talked about that in a while. So as a reminder, that first drought stage is triggered either when the 10-day average J17 level gets down to 660, or when the Canal Spring Flow 10-day average gets down to about 225 CFS. So we were getting close to there, and those rains came at just the right time to keep us out of those drought stages. Not really seeing the same thing on the Canal Springs. The kind of background shows you the range of observed flows over the period of record, but the dark black line in the middle shows how we've tracked against the average, and really all this year we've tracked very average spring flows. So really healthy spring flow out of the canal. With the rain, we've seen an increase in kind of the base flow across the river. So pretty much basin wide, we are very near median flows in the areas above, below Canyon, and on the Blanco, which the Blanco was getting pretty dry prior to these events. So really healthy river conditions right now for water supply. And as a result, if you remember back in February, the last time we talked about this, our entire basin was in that moderate to severe drought category. We've been removed from that with very, very little dry conditions in the basin right now. So looking forward, the Pacific's not really giving us any indication of what might lie ahead. They're predicting a neutral pattern between the El Nino and La Nina cycle. So no indication of either an El Nino or La Nina developing this year with the current predictions. And NOAA's issued their 3-month outlook for the summer. That's showing, if you look on the right, that shows you the outlook for precipitation. Really no indication of above or below average rainfall. So we do have hurricane season. We are now in hurricane season, so we'll wait and see what happens, but no indication in the forecast of what might lie ahead. But they are predicting a really strong chance of above average temperatures for this summer period. So with that, I'll turn it over to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Charlie. Any questions or comments?
There are no questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I believe that completes our agenda until we move into executive session. And so it is 11:20 at this time, and I would propose that we recess this meeting and go into executive session at 11:30. Are there any objections to that?
I see no comments or questions, Mr. Chairman, and just a reminder, you should have been provided a conference call line to dial into at 11:30.
Do you see any business on the horizon that we would need to reconvene in open session?
No, sir, I don't.
Then after the executive session, we will move to adjourn. So with that, at 11:20, the meeting is recessed to 11:30, and then we will have our executive session. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
So Tom, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am. I am now.
All right, can we tell how many of the directors have logged back in?
I'm back, Will.
Thanks, Will.
Oscar's back.
Thanks, Oscar.
Don,
Thanks, Don.
This is Kenneth Model.
Thanks, Kenneth.
Steve Eric.
Thanks, Steve.
Two missing so far. I mean, you have a quorum, but there are two missing.
Director Matthews here. I had it muted. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. See, the only one I don't have checked is Director Hermes.
All right, since we have a quorum, then if there is no additional business, I'm bringing the open meeting portion back into session at 12:42. And Tom, can you confirm there is a quorum?
Yes, sir. I confirm that there is a quorum. There are 7 of the 8 directors.
So is there any further business?
No, sir.
Seeing no further business, I will move to adjourn. Adjourn at 12:43.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.